Engagers, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of using games and gamification in our daily lives, for example, to learn what we are teaching. And I am Rob Alvarez. I work at Ironhack, teach at IE Business School University, and so much more, and host this podcast. If you have an extra second, please go ahead and subscribe for free to our email list at professorgame.com/subscribe. Engagers, welcome back to this episode of the Professor Game podcast. And today we have Andrew with us. But before we take off, Andrew, are you prepared to engage?
Yes.
Let's do this. Let's go, because we have Andrew with us today. And Andrew is the co-founder and CEO of G13R, the developers of GenMove, BALLN and MyKicks. GenMove, the company's flagship product, uses AI to create a gamified exercise experience for Gen Alpha Z using motion tracking to create augmented reality motion games. GenMove was launched into the market in November 2022, so very recently, in collaboration with the World Health Organization with the aim of getting more children to be more active. Andrew, what are we missing from that intro, or is there anything that we're missing from there?
Yeah, no. The big problem that we're solving with GenMove, I guess that's not described in the intro, is kids were definitely migrating away from outside play over the last 20 years. The studies are showing that, but the pandemic made it even worse. So the time that kids now spend outside exercising has plummeted. They talk about 80% of kids no longer meeting physical activity guidelines, and studies are now also showing they're about 8% heavier. So we were like, well, because we got kids, we got to actually do something about this. And that's why we developed GenMove, this gamified exercise experience to help kids kind of, re-engage with movement fundamentals.
Amazing. That's fantastic. And Andrew, we always like to get to know our guests themselves a little bit more. So what would you say is a day with Andrew look like, or a week? We want to sort of understand what does it feel like to be Andrew nowadays?
Well, I'm my late 40s now, but I literally rise early because I've got kids. I'm probably up about 5:45, meditate, run, coffee, and then I'm straight into it. So, if I'm in Europe or the US or Australia, I generally start the day, time boxing and checking emails and responding. And then, most of the day is spent on product and iterating on the data that we receive every day of GenMove and trying to make it better. Like, I have an amazing team that works with me to sort of go through this rapid iteration process to try and make the stuff, a better user experience all the time. So we're really busy. We kind of live and breathe this, as most, startup founders do, but we're certainly having a great time.
Sounds amazing. So Andrew, we also dive right in. Right after getting to know our guests a little bit better, we always like to ask this question about fail or first attempt in learning. And it can be about your favorite fail, especially when it has to do with creating some sort of gamified experience. It could be, again, with GenMove or not. We want to be there with you. See one of those times where you're going to try to do something, it just didn't work out. And, how did you get out of it? How did you improve it with this product mentality? Like, we want to be there with you. We want to take those lessons away as well.
Yeah, look. So the reason that we actually formed GenMove was a failed product before it called BALLN. We thought we had the perfect product ready to go. We raised money from one of the largest English Premier League clubs, one of the largest well-known football players in the world, and we built out a multi-skill, more performance assessment app for soccer in the US and football in Europe. And we were like, this thing's going to fly. We've got all the right people involved. And we released it, and we were like, oh, wow. It had 8 skills that we measured. 2 were indoor, 6 were outdoor, and people just weren't using the outdoor stuff. And we're like, oh, no, it's winter, that's fine. But they were really using the indoor stuff. And then as it came to spring and to summer, it just didn't change. And we're like, what is going on? And what was going on is the kids that were the target market actually in their free time weren't choosing to go outside and play anymore. They were choosing more time on Roblox, more time on Minecraft. That's where they were going. But we had this extremely deep engagement signal on all of the indoor stuff that we built. And we were finding kids exercising in their bedrooms and their living rooms using what was really the precursor to GenMove. So BALLN really's failure led to GenMove, which is now 50 indoor games and potentially our success. So that was certainly a harrowing moment, bringing along all of our stakeholders, including some of the biggest football clubs in the world and the biggest players in the world. Hey, we actually got this wrong. We had no idea how we could predict that this would be wrong, because we all thought it was a good idea together, and now actually want to go over here because that's where there is a real problem, and we're seeing all this engagement. So go where the customers are happiest using your product, and that's what led to GenMove. It was quite a journey.
Amazing. And I'm guessing that BALLN as well had some gamified elements. Do you think there was anything that you could have maybe done differently that would have changed, or eventually you had to do that to arrive to GenMove, which was the place you're at now?
We could have done more gamification in BALLN for sure, but it was just so clear that the kids' outdoor time was just plummeted. And we actually went to top academics in the world and people that were tracking mobile phone tower data, and it was really clear that everyone was seeing this change worldwide. So it was like, do you back a sinking ship, or do you use this really crisp signal and go all in on that? And, unfortunately, startup investors don't have the patience to back sinking ships. So we were like, we just need to pivot and just go for it. And we did. And we got some amazing partners that sort of, saw the opportunity, and here we are today. Actually, we just featured on NBC News last night, which was amazing, right? Didn't even know about it. And it was not last night, the 20th of January. But, it feels that the decision was right with all the momentum that's building behind us now.
Sounds great. Sounds like a lot of lessons learned from that.
Yeah.
And as you can see, engagers, sometimes it's not just about more gamification or better gamification. Sometimes you just have to sit back and think, are we doing the right thing? And that's when we talk about play testing, about looking into our players, when we talk about all these things, it is precisely about that, figuring out what it is that we're not doing right so that we can actually get to do it right. We're not perfect. We don't know things from the start. And that's normal. That's part of it. We can't get into other people's minds. And that's the way that we do it. We test it out. We put it out there. We test and see how it goes, see what we have to improve. So, Andrew, let's actually go for the opposite story, a story of success. You're saying, well, we're going for this, we're taking it, and it went well, something you can be proud of, especially, again, if it's in the world of some form of gamified product. It could be GenMove, or maybe a story of success within that. I don't know. Lead us wherever it is that your interest is going.
Yeah, look, so for us, it's all about how do we get maximum retention, because that's that data point is users are really enjoying it and coming back repeatedly. And we always felt that just the gamified exercise wasn't enough. Like, it's a really, really fun experience, but we thought to build some metagame layers on top of it, right? And so we ended up sort of doing a move to earn with coins where the kids could come in and actually build out their avatars and, improve the look and feel of their avatar. And that was first release after launch, and we saw the retention kick up dramatically. And then we added in an idle game for more rewards, and we saw the retention kick up dramatically again. So, for us, these gamified layers and this product roadmap we have keeps moving the retention curves up and further to the right. So, we feel really vindicated and extremely excited by, the proof points of the day 7, 14 and 28 retention that we see in our users, right, through this product roadmap features we implement, and we've got many more to go. So I think for us, after BALLN was a bit like, okay, great, it's working, but the data is showing it's working really well. So we're that's a success, right? The metagame layers and the positive reinforcement loops really, really do work and have absolutely worked for our product.
Sounds like an amazing story. Definitely want to learn more, and especially like the next question that we always do has to do with the process. And how have you arrived to this way of doing things, or maybe how are you improving them as well? If you were going to start GenMove from the get-go right now, how would you do? Like, what are the steps that you would perhaps do, like with this, or maybe even another different initiative that has some gamification?
Yeah, so we're very data driven. The way that we've done it is every startup has to have a theory, right? That theory is unlikely to be right. That's what all the data says. So, what we do is we build the mechanics of the first game. We then play test it internally as fast as possible. And then as fast as possible, we get it to a cohort of people that don't know us, and we watch. And it's horrible, right? Because all the UX problems and, people not understanding how to play the game and playing the game wrong. And so we did that, actually. We were very lucky through GenMove to have a partnership with the World Health Organization, who was able to switch on various academic groups around the world for us to actually fly into and get access to 100 kids of all ages genres, male, female, skinny, mesomorphs, obese, even neurologically disadvantaged. And we got to watch and test and iterate on that process. So I think, our key thing is you got to just get in the hands of users, and you've got to watch, and you've got to be there, and you've just got to iterate really, really fast to what becomes a really enjoyable experience. And you've got to be able to measure that level of enjoyment. Usually for us, it's do they complete the 10-minute session? We had very, very high numbers as we iterated. And then what are they actually telling us about how fun this experience is versus their favorite sport, other sports? And that's how we get a feeling. Are we nearing the zone? It's this rapid iteration by putting a product out there to kind of have really critical feedback.
I think that is definitely something that we all need to consider, right? To see how we move fast. And moving fast means not doing necessarily a huge, big thing, right? It's getting some fast things out there and being able to test. Is that right?
That's right. And as the entrepreneur, the conundrum is that you always feel you have a big vision, but you can't always deliver that big vision fast, right? So you've got to kind of work out where the threshold is for usable and lovable. And that's enough for V1. And that's really hard as an entrepreneur to kind of go, oh, this could work. No, I want to spend another 3 months on it. You do actually need to get it out as fast as possible, because the real learning only starts then.
Getting the word out. That's definitely a significant part of it. So thanks a lot for that, Andrew.
Just a quick break before we continue. Are you enjoying this podcast? If you're listening through a podcasting app, please subscribe and rate us on the app. This will be of great help to reach more engagers so we can change the world together through gamification.
And Andrew, when creating these types of products, creating apps, creating things, maybe even especially in the field you're at with children, would you say that there's some sort of best practice, something that, if you think about this or if you use this in general, you'd say, well, your product is at least going to be a little bit better?
Yeah. For us, the best practice that we've tried to copy from high performance product teams is these ceremonies and procedures where every day there's a stand up, there's a product council where everyone gets to watch the debates at the product council and understand why we're moving in certain directions. And for us, that creates a huge amount of autonomy and harmony in our teams. We weren't always like that. We've certainly been like the last 2 or 3 years. And so everyone's pulling in the right direction, following the data. So I'd say you have to have a very powerful data stream that you can use to make decisions on how to iterate. And then it's about the best practice of how do you kind of let the whole team know what's going on, because that's where you really build that culture where people go above and beyond to really commit and go all in on the product, right? And that's what we think is the best practice that we would bring across to any future deal. That type of ceremonies, team setup, rich data streams, rapid iteration, and also we get stuck. Like we do get stuck at times, and I kind of wear the head of product hat as well. And I just love going back to my team and having a design sprint and going, here's the problem. 99% of the DNA talent is outside of my head. How do I lean on my team to bring new and fresh ideas in? And it's worked so well for us on solving these problems, because you're always going to get stuck. It's where do you go to get unstuck? It's your team, right? The engineers, the product designers, even the junior engineers have amazing input that we've found. And all of that stuff is blended through the GenMove product.
Sounds like a very product-oriented mindset,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, hopefully we're doing it right. We'll see.
So, Andrew, you've listened to these questions now. You know part of what the interviews are about. Is there somebody that comes to your mind? You say, well, I would really like to listen to this person's perspective, sort of a future guest for Professor Game, maybe somebody that inspired you. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I love it. There's actually a CEO who's also in this motion game category, not focused on kids, but a guy called David Lee from NEX, and I'd really love to hear David's journey, because I don't think it's that dissimilar to ours, but he's gone a different direction, which is very exciting as well. So I think, if you want to get David Lee on, I know I'd be listening. The CEO and co-founder of NEX.
Sounds good. Let's see if we have him on in the near future. And talking about recommendations, is there a book that you would recommend an audience like this one, like The Engagers?
Yeah, so for me, there's so much to do, right, in startup land. Like it's just never ending. And I find, maybe this is an insight into my personality type, but I find it very easy to get distracted these days, right? And so fighting distraction is the key to productivity, I find. And there was a great book that came out recently by a guy that wrote, I think, the Bible of product called Nur Isle. His original book was Hooked, but this book's called Indistractable. And so for me, it's been very helpful to adopt some of those techniques to be more efficient in this game. So yeah, Nur Isle, Indistractable, highly recommend it.
Well, definitely we have an eye for that because Nir Eyal is episode like 100 or 101 of the episode, and he's talking about that book. So if you're interested in listening to his perspective on that as well, definitely take a look into that episode. I think it's 100 or 101 actually. Let me check it out, and I'll let you know in a second. But yeah, Nir was in the podcast. He's an amazing. He has that book, and he has Hooked from the Hooked model as well. Absolutely amazing, and he has so much stuff to share for sure. Episode 100. Yeah, got it right.
Cool.
So, keeping up with the recommendations, but actually in this case, the recommendations for you, right? So, what is that thing that you do great, or at least better than most other people? Sort of your superpower, that thing, again, that you do better than most of the other people out there.
Honestly, I reckon it's using data to make decisions and being really open to, like, fixed on your mission, but being really flexible about how you get there through what the data's telling you. In a former life, I was actually studying for a PhD in biostatistics. I'm a bit of a data nut from way back, but for us being very product centric, I think our superpower as a team is data and how we use it, and how often we use it, and how we use it to iterate to try and get a better product every day.
Sounds great. Sounds very useful as well within the product mentality. Being data driven is always very, very useful. Definitely. So, Andrew, we're getting to a difficult one, at least for most of our guests. They always report this is a difficult question, which is, what would you say is your favorite game?
Well, for me, I've been very absorbed in what my 9-year-old's doing as I build this product, and I'm absolutely blown away at what can be done in Roblox. It's extraordinary. The depth of experience, I find myself actually almost wanting to watch my son, like on a Twitch channel. So I'm not a hardcore gamer. I come from a health and fitness background, but Roblox is very inspirational to me, and some of the themes of our metagame have elements of that in there as well. But I'm just absolutely blown away how this company has created this experience that is so mesmerizing and enthralling. And I think I last read that, I don't know, like close to 75% of US Gen Alpha kids play Roblox. It's extraordinary.
That's quite a number.
Huge.
Quite a number for sure. And it's interesting because as Roblox as well has its sort of platform side where you can create your own stuff as well, it can be a pretty amazing thing to get into.
I'm just mesmerized by the avatar suits my little guy comes back with every day. It's extraordinary. Very, very creative.
Absolutely. And there's as usual, especially when there's sort of these open platforms and there's all sorts of things that you can do. There's a good and the bad. I was just very recently reading a Twitter thread of somebody like complaining pretty badly about Roblox, and there was something about precisely with kids. There was something that was content marked as okay for very young kids, and it was very much not okay apparently. I have no idea, but there's always that, right? You always get the good and the bad from things, especially nowadays with social media. Everything's out in the open. That's also a good thing, right?
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
It's good, and there is risks on these platforms, right, with the ability to communicate and all the rest of it. So it's a difficult line that they're treading and making a good and safe experience for kids, right?
Definitely so. So Andrew, we have arrived to our random question from the audience. So the idea is that we'll find a question from the audience. Of course, I pre-selected them to make sure that they make sense for our guests. And we will have, okay, here it's coming up. So, okay, yeah, I think this could be an interesting one because I don't know if you got started on this or how did it go. But this person is asking, what can we do to get started in gamification?
Well, I reckon the way to do it is to look at some of the leading games and start to understand the gamification mechanics. and what's working, because it's many, many layers that create the ultimate experience, and understanding what the core is and what the positive reinforcement loops are on top of that, and the negative ones as well. I think you need the theory. So, find a book or find some YouTube videos that sort of help explain the theory, but then go and apply that to 5 to 10 games that you enjoy or are leading games, and really understand where that threshold is to create the complete game. That would be my advice.
Sounds amazing. Thank you very much for that, for your insights, for your thoughtfulness on that answer, because it's not an easy one. And there's many people out there, like we here have mostly like people who are dedicated experts on gamification. It's always good to also have somebody who has that different perspective. Like, how did you come about it? And I think yours is definitely a great one for sure. And Andrew, before we finish the interview, I want to leave you some sort of open mic time, like whatever your final words you want to have. Please also let us know where we can find out more about what you're doing at GenMove and all the fantastic things you're doing at that company before we say it's game over.
Yeah, awesome. So I think the key to being successful is your team. Teams, people have choices of teams to join, and for us, it's really been that open and transparent data discussion, going back to our team to help unblock us. And that's created a culture that, that people have hung around through thick and thin to see this through. So I think that's a big one for me is, you need to be product focused, you need to have the theory, but ultimately it comes down to your team and how they deliver, and you just need a great team around you. So look, anyone that wants to learn about, getting kids more active, getting a lot of inquiry from schools at the moment, parents who are concerned about, too much non-productive screen time, reach out to us for a conversation. Reach me at andrew@g13r.com. I'd love to chat to anyone, and or check me out on LinkedIn, Andrew Hall, G13R. Love to engage.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that, direct email as well for the engagers in case anybody wants to reach out directly. However, Andrew, all things come to an end, at least for now. So at least for now, and at least for today, it is time to say that it's game over. Engagers, it's fantastic to have you around, and thank you for listening to this Professor Game podcast. And if you want more interviews with incredible guests like Andrew, please go to professorgame.com/subscribe and get started on our email list for free. We'll be in contact. We'll let you know about anything that we have for you. And of course, as I always like to remind you, because it is important for the growth of the podcast, for the growth of this fantastic Engagers community, please remember, if you haven't already, please, using the app that you're using to listen to this audio, go ahead and subscribe using that podcast app. And then, of course, as usual, listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.